I'm going to call this meeting of the Public Health and Safety Standing Committee to order of December 10th. Okay. Jody is absent. We have Doug, myself, and Chief and Mayor present. Did you have a chance to read the minutes?
I did.
Oh, good. Did you see any problems in there?
Nope, we're good.
The only question that I had in here, which I didn't mark, it says, in the meantime, the police department will put an officer in the school throughout the school year to help get students and staff used to the school resource officer's role.
It's only a couple of different sessions where he'll either be doing traffic safety talks, drug education, school safety, stuff like that. It's nothing.
It's not
that,
throughout the year.
No.
It's occasionally.
Yeah.
twice maybe.
Is there an as-able, but he goes down and strolls through if schedule allows, or?
That schedule allows, yeah, but
Just so there's a presence?
Yeah, so we had followed up, the superintendent, you were out of the area, the superintendent wanted to meet the candidate, so we sat down and spoke with him for about 45 minutes, and Mr. Quinzer from the high school, and I talked about this our last meeting. They are applying for a levy for a school safety officer to bring their end up to where it needs to be.
Okay.
For the 75-25. It was a productive meeting, and yeah.
So basically, it'll go to the voters about, hey, do we want to pay this expense to handle this?
Essentially,
And
yeah.
at 75%. You good with that?
Yep, and they wanted to have him in once or twice before the end of the school year. The candidate, the officer that's interested in it, has worked in the schools before, but in a different state, and he actually did everything from school bus inspection to traffic safety briefs with the students, and school safety, what is that called? In-service training with the teachers for school safety emergency, like disaster planning and stuff like that.
That's real good.
And he's very well versed in drug awareness and alcohol abuse issues and stuff like that. So that's kind of what they wanted to.
What was their impression and take? Were they
were impressed.
They were, yes, if we're able to get this is the guy we'll take.
Well, I explained that although everybody is, I guess, essentially rooting for the same guy, by the union, I still have to open it up to the department to see if there's any other interest. However, there's only one other officer who's interested, or excuse me, there's only one other officer that is qualified for the position in the department, but he is said on record that he's not interested. Yeah.
Well, and even if he changed his mind, if he came in, the only way he would get selected is if he's a better choice. So we'll select the best choice from all of the interested candidates.
And that is Officer Purvis, and we all know Jeff. His talents lie
Elsewhere.
Everywhere.
On the street. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Okay. So with the minutes, I would move that we accept them with that as amended, so that it now reads, in the meantime, the police department will put an officer in the school as schedule allowed during the school year. Does that work with you, Doug?
Okay. Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Is it that the minutes were captured incorrectly, or is that those are your minutes, but now you're adding a parenthetical correction that says the updated understanding is? Because the minutes should reflect what was actually discussed.
So what was discussed was just what he said.
Okay.
Is that there would be different opportunities within the school.
Okay.
We discussed different things that the officers could do with the kids, right down to showing them what the police dog can do.
So it's
We
a,
discussed
but
bruises.
it is a correction to the minutes,
It's
not an
definitely a
update of the
correction.
understanding.
It's
Okay.
a correction.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. And, let's see, Chief Schrock, news updates, concerns.
No major concerns. The weekend, from a law enforcement perspective was a success. There was a lot of people here. I was out on, with my family, I was out on Friday. Seems like there was a lot of people. And then Saturday, I think there was even more. I wasn't,
That's
I
what
wasn't,
they,
right. Yeah, I wasn't present for Saturday, but there was no major issues, no loss of life, anything like that. So, no, seriously, I mean, like, there was a head-on collision next to Cooney on Friday night for people probably coming up here for it. Thankfully, no loss of life.
wow.
Yeah,
Well,
so
that's a
it's,
hard one.
as far as I'm concerned, that's a win. Because normally, you know, a lot of times when we have big events, we do have crashes and we do have, you know, other circumstances to where, you know, but this weekend specifically is pretty low-key. It's nice.
Red Lodge Business Alliance yesterday said that they too all felt that Saturday was much busier than Friday night.
I would imagine, yeah, that's what my guys were telling me.
And Friday night, they estimated at 11,000 people.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
And,
Yeah.
which will be setting a record once you add the numbers from, Saturday night.
Sure.
The much higher, I think COVID was the highest year.
Yeah, I thought I
Is that
remembered
right?
6 or 7. Yeah, that was one of the higher ones we had.
20,000 people for the stroll completely.
Total, wow.
And then it was like 19 and 18 and,
Yeah, the other thing that I understood is that where Friday night is normally kind of locals night centric,
Yeah, I've heard that, yeah.
it sounded like this year there was not as many locals out and present, but it was still,
There's still a ton of people.
there was still a lot of people, and sales seemed to be good for folks across the way.
Yeah, there was a lot of familiar faces when I was up there on Friday night, so there was, you know,
Yeah.
but definitely a lot of visitors for sure.
And they do have, that Placer AI software that initially came to us as a city, and I repointed and redirected them down there. It's a tracking software for all those apps that you apply in and say, yes, you can track me. They basically track that information, they buy that information, and then use that to extrapolate how many people you had within the city or the boundaries and kind of where they come from, and they go out. So they don't assume that you know, I had a concern because when we looked at it from the numbers for the Ren Fair last year, they were like, oh, you had 3,400 people. This is not 3,400 hits, that was what they extrapolated out, and it's like, we got ticket sales, we know that number is wrong. But they'll work together to kind of get some data and,
what's the name of the software?
pardon? It's called Placer AI, and I have a bunch of screenshots. And I think I sat down with you months ago and kind of shared some of that with you, but
Sounds spooky.
it is and it isn't. It's basically consent. It's consent data. It doesn't include minors.
I see.
But it's also only as valid as the data and the algorithms behind it. It's what they provide is good. When it came to the city and they wanted the city to purchase, interestingly enough, it was a lot cheaper for the city to purchase it. But from a city decision, I had two concerns. What is the validity? And secondly, what can we do with that information that we can't already do? Like if it got us a $500,000 grant that we wouldn't have got otherwise, then it would have been, you know, worth spending $10,000 or $15,000 for. But what they were able to tell us is we have more people here on the 4th of July than on normal days, or there was a lot of people here for the festival. Information we already had.
Yeah.
So putting numbers that were there that weren't particularly valid wasn't useful, but knowing where they come from, where they're going to, all those ordinances was stuff that was useful potentially to the chamber.
Yeah.
And so I set them up down to the chamber and they met, and then the chamber got a grant for the information to buy it. So it gives us, and we have access to, you know, have her look up certain information, which will be helpful from a state, you know, planning courses and whatnot.
Yeah, she can
So.
share it. Okay.
I have a question. The emergency training event we had,
Mhm.
how did that go? I know they kind of called over and we had mentioned who to talk, and I've heard reports that involvement was good and it was successful, but
Mhm.
did we learn anything or have any concerns that came out of it?
So they, what happened with that was, I was advised of it,
Just an awareness.
as an awareness and not without a lot of advance notice, and we had 2 full-day training days scheduled for the department. that day, so we weren't able to have anybody go.
Okay.
But I did speak with the county health nurse and, Serena from DES about the training, yeah.
Okay, so we didn't attend.
And we did, prior to the event, we talked about what we do have to offer from a city as far as using the siren and our webpage and sending things out via blast so that they are aware of what our capabilities are
Well, that's good.
if there's any sort of an incident that requires a immediate mass notification.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of tools, both with the county, the siren, obviously, has been used historically to let the people of the town know that there's something really wrong, short of
Get online and find out what it is, or, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah,
This particular event was a snow load collapsed roof at the Child Center with people inside was kind of what the practice event was.
okay.
Will it be you who speaks for committee tonight for public health and safety, Sandy? Oh, never mind, yeah, it was you anyway. I was gonna say, are you covering for her? No, you're covering for you.
I'm covering for me. So, of course, we haven't heard from the grants yet that went through Lexipol, so it'll be a
2025?
months and months and months.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna skip to, I saw that in the newspaper, you had the calls for service in there.
I didn't publish them. The report that I gave public health and safety, I personally did not send those to the newspaper.
And neither did I.
That's fine, as long as it got there.
Well, it wasn't thorough, but it was there. So
Was it my report?
It wasn't your complete report, no.
Oh, then, yeah,
But I liked having it in with the police blotter.
sure,
I mean, it's the perfect thing to have, and there's calls for service.
yeah.
I think people
Yeah.
need to understand how many calls for service you have.
Hmm.
And maybe we can, sort through and only turn in some of them, you don't need to get into.
Non-traffic related?
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically not.
Well, they pick and choose for entertainment value
Absolutely.
of the ones
That's
that
the
they
truth.
list out.
Yeah.
But I do think, and we kind of talked about, because we got the report last time, but unfortunately, it was too late to go. So we talked about if we can get like the previous month before the Friday morning, before the second Tuesday. That way, what happens?
You're gonna have to
You wanna
send me.
hear that again?
Yeah, well, you have it in writing, but basically, it just, we have to include it in the I'd like to include it in the first packet of each month for the previous month.
I see,
And the first meeting is always the second Tuesday,
okay.
and the packet goes out, it's prep Thursday and goes out Friday morning.
Got it.
So if we have it no later than Friday morning, we can include it in the packet, and then that can give the newspaper a good source of that information as well. And
That
that's,
would
so
be
that's
really
just
good.
once a month. But it also kind of ties to, if it's the second week of December, for instance, here's November's number. The
Got it.
second week of January, here's
December.
December's number.
Got it.
Yeah, we're just looking for numbers, and, I'm sure the rest of the city council has no idea either exactly how much work you guys really do, and we want people to know that.
Right.
Okay, then we get into the animal ordinance, domestic animal ordinance. I had pulled quite a bit off, let's start with puppy mills versus breeding. There is a difference. A puppy mill is a commercial breeding facility for profit. There's usually no interaction between the puppies and their parents. And, they're usually sold, when the puppies are less than 6 weeks old. That's all the definitions that I found on, Montana State.
Mm-hmm.
A breeder is more a hobbyist, where they're clean, the cages are spacious and well-maintained, and mom stays with the puppies. So I think that we should avoid the word breeder and just stick with, puppy mill. The other thing, when I saw this was a House bill, that was submitted, and there was lots of things in here. One was how many. This is 31 or more dogs. And this is just a definition. 31 or more dogs or cats in a 12-month period. you know, these things are kind of unenforceable. I mean, how are we going to know that their two dogs had, you know, 2 litters during the year, and how many puppies came out of that litter?
That's true. Yeah, to put an exact number on something is kind of shooting yourself in the foot, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I saw 20, another House bill from before that was, 20, sell more than 20 dogs or puppies in a year.
Yeah, thankfully for us, since my time here in Red Lodge, I have not run into one type of investigation that pertains to something like this. I know county has had 1, maybe 2 in 18 years since I've been here, almost 18 years. And, it's just something that we don't often run into, or never, for my office,
Okay.
Thankfully. Because, I mean, like, proving that
That's the problem.
is nearly impossible.
Yeah, and, I mean, we know that there's a breeder, we'll call them, down in Joliet that always has a sign out that they have puppies.
Yeah.
You know, we see that sign.
Right.
on
Is
our-
it on the highway?
Yeah,
Between Boyd and Joliet?
yeah,
Yeah, Amish.
it really,
Huh?
but they're not a puppy mill, and we only see the sign once a year, maybe.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Maybe twice.
Maybe the same family, I'm not sure, but I have personally been out there.
So my question is, so if we get into a public health and safety, I don't know that the distinction between the two is significant. What are our concerns, I guess? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? Is it,
It's not,
we don't want neighbors to have to deal with excess pets next
Permit?
door? Is it an animal welfare thing that we want? So I think in terms of what are the things that we have the city do an inspection for? So they do an inspection if you're going to be renting your place short-term or long-term. They do an inspection if you're gonna have a business where you serve food to the public. Or if there are people are gonna be gathering, there's fire concerns. So what is our public health and safety concern that legitimizes we're gonna butt into people's lives?
I would say the excess pee and poop. You can't have 20 dogs and avoid that. I mean, we know with 1 dog or 2 dogs, how much is put out. It'll also, obviously it isn't good for the animals, but we're not in charge of the animals. But I would say the yipping, the barking, the noise and the smells are to me, the concern. And it's my understanding from Jody that one house that was torn down on Broadway was because they were breeding dogs, or they were a puppy mill, and it was so bad that they had to literally tear down the house.
Are we talking between 14th and 15th on? Yeah, there was a lot of factors that went into that. We've been in that house.
Yeah, there was
countless times.
more other issues too.
There was a lot of other issues, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, I mean, like, I've been there, like I said, often, and I never saw anything in regards to a mill.
okay.
But that's when I was on night shift, so that's, over 4 years ago. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
So, where's ours? I have everything but ours. I have the cruelty to animals, but again, that's just the Montana code.
Mm-hmm.
And Department of Health and Human Guidance document. Observe, this is for feral cats, which again, feral cat colonies are an issue, for health and safety. Having those cats, pee and poo everywhere, and they're wild.
Well, and feeding them to the point that it's bringing in raccoons and rabies and some other concerns.
Yeah, and I don't know how to address somebody that says that they're on my property, they're my pets, which has happened
Yeah.
when you're feeding the feral cats.
Yeah. There's ways to, There's ways to tell the difference, obviously. Number one, if a feral cat that's in incredibly rough shape is your pet and it's on your property, then we have an animal cruelty case because this cat isn't being cared for.
properly.
And like we said, with state charges, we do have municipal ordinance that we enforce. However, it seems like state charges, when we do file those have a little bit more teeth, in terms of punishment and stuff like that. So like, for a municipal ordinance violation, if I cite somebody for that, and they just decide they're not going to show up to court, we don't put out state warrants for it. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody doesn't pay a parking ticket, stuff like that,
Doesn't go to a
even though
warrant.
we should, but, or we could if we charge state code. But state code is,
Different.
yeah, it depends, you know, it depends on what we're dealing with, but it seems like the state side of things, we're able to kind of go through the process a little bit smoother.
Yeah, because what they have here is, of course, the concern with rabies,
Sure.
because these animals haven't been properly taken care of.
Right, yeah.
So now you've got to worry about rabies and wild animals, and cats are vicious when they're wild,
Oh, yeah.
vicious.
So I have a question here. This is the second week in a row we've talked, and I have, to be honest with you, I've lost track of what are we trying to address?
We have ordinance 904, an ordinance amending Title 5, Chapter 5B of the Red Lodge City Council concerning animal control, and then it says dogs. And I think we changed that to domestic animal control, because we didn't want to
Okay.
address only dogs.
Okay,
We also wanted to address pets. And I know in the third whereas, we changed the word dog to pets. We have definitions, and it was suggested that we use the terms that the state uses,
okay.
which was, yeah, I have too much.
Do,
There's a vicious animal and a nuisance animal.
is there copies of the language being changed up till now, and why? I mean, you're reading something that I don't see or have not seen yet. Is
Well,
that just
all
because I'm
we've
out of the
done
loop, or?
Is we're reviewing ordinance 904. And so we're changing the words dogs and kind of heading toward domestic, and trying to avoid the term dog, although you'll see in the definitions on 5B1, it has dangerous dog, at-large dog, animal shelter, animal altered dog, enclosure, owner, restraint service dog, vicious dog. And so we were kind of heading towards what the state had, which was nuisance dog versus vicious dog. And I think that we need to stick with nuisance animal and vicious animal.
So I'm looking at, so first off, I looked at the Bill Explorer, which is like everything that's coming up in the year, and I did a quick search for like pets or or mills or puppies or things, and didn't find anything coming up. The Montana code that I see is 45.8.211 that talks about cruelty to the animals, and it talks about overworking, beating, tormenting, torturing, injuring, or killing,
Right.
carrying or confining the animal in a cruel manner, failing to provide an animal in the person's custody with food and water, sufficient quantity and quality for the health, minimum protection from the animal from adverse weather, obvious serious illness or injury without seeking proper care, abandon or helpless or abandoning of an animal on any highway, promoting, sponsoring, or conducting animal races. Then that talks a little bit about the fine.
Yeah, I do have a copy of the cruelty to animals, and I think that the state totally covers it. So I don't think that our ordinance regarding domestic animal control should actually address cruelty to animals. I mean, we did have that one complaint that when somebody went to work, they let their dog out, and the dog barked all day long. And when they put the dog in the house, you know, or keep the dog in the house all day, they were saying that that was cruel. you know, and it's basically one neighbor's opinion of whether or not that's cruel. I don't see that as being cruel, keeping them in the house all day, if you're willing to take care of the issue.
Sure.
And of course, we have an art ordinance, that's what this is about, the barking, and that makes it a nuisance animal, but not a vicious animal.
Right.
This was a project that Jody was, pursuing, wanted us to clean this up.
So, kind of in line with, Doug's question, I'm kind of pulling out my little, seeing if I can find my, you know, the can we do this, should we do this? Identifying what is it we're trying to fix?
I think that we're trying to, make sure that we don't have any puppy mills, because Jody felt that there has been. And a puppy mill is, like you said, it's terrible for the puppies, but I imagine that the neighbors are also. But when I think about that, we already have an ordinance here that deals with excrement. It deals with barking, which would be the two things that, to me, a puppy mill to a neighbor would be concerned with. The cat colonies, I don't know if this code concerning domestic animal control, it's not domestic, once it's feral, right?
I think those are competing definitions, or,
So maybe it should just say animal control. But we already have do we have an ordinance for feeding wild cats? We have wild animals, wouldn't that cover the cats?
I'm guessing it probably doesn't. As far as like feeding in a controlled manner such that wildlife can't get, I mean, the problem is if I throw it out, like just to throw cat food out in the backyard, that is wild animals, because wild animals will come and get to it.
Because you haven't controlled the food. Notes that I made here, one note in particular, on page 3 of our current ordinance, D6, it says the Red Lodge Police Department is encouraged to create a database of digital photographs of dogs. And we did change that to the city is encouraged, which of course, I doubt that the city's going to do that as
No,
well.
I remember talking about that, but I think it was the concerns about the practicality of it.
Exactly. It would be like getting when you get your dog license, then she was saying that you could also provide a photo, and then the city would maintain the photo. But I gotta tell you, one border collie looks like the same as the other border collie. Dogs, breeds look similar. So I don't think that a database with photos is gonna be effective at all. So I would prefer to take that out. I don't know how you feel about that, Doug.
It's not gonna work. I mean, again, we've discussed this. I hear that we're just going round and round saying the same thing week after week. What do we need to address? What problem is on the table right now that we need to address?
Probably cat colonies.
All right, do we have a problem with them right now?
Yes.
Okay, and what is
Do
the
we-
problem?
We have a particular, at least one, resident who has in the dozens of cats aren't fixed. They roam his property and others and neighboring properties. He feeds them outside.
Is this still ongoing
They
from the
breed
last
like
one?
cats. It is. It still is an extension of the same ones.
Okay.
And it kind of does this, they go in and fix, like they've had Saturdays where they've fixed 20-plus animals in a single day. Basically, the vets have worked from sun up till sundown.
Right.
Or they've trapped them, trying to reduce the number.
And most of the trapping has actually occurred on, neighboring properties, so that we
Or in
don't,
the alley, yeah. But he wouldn't allow trapping on his property.
Okay, so he doesn't own them?
No.
Oh, no,
He just
he
feeds
says he
them?
does. So he wouldn't let VHA come in.
well, and it was his
trap
and there was a time where he actually did sign several forms that were the standard form that we have the right to do this, or, and there was actually, to your point, there was actually a case that went to court, and it actually, there was some fines and penalties and stuff that kind of caused that to do, but I think that's probably the biggest one. The second complaint is something we get a lot of complaints of, is just dog barking. And the way that it is right now is if your dog is barking 20 minutes
Okay, yeah.
out of the hour. So I think those are two
Okay.
complaints that we get.
Let's address the first one, the cats.
Okay?
So, this guy, he claims he owns them, but he obviously doesn't. We're talking about dozens of cats that are roaming around?
More than dozens, yeah,
Yeah, multiple dozens.
because they keep breeding.
Okay. And,
The whole neighborhood has the problem with the cats getting in everywhere with
sure,
cat pee, cat poo.
so we can't eliminate them, catch them
Well,
and put them to sleep?
That's the problem, is that VHA came in
What- Yeah,
and trapped them and fixed them, hoping that that would help reduce the amount of cats in the colony.
But it didn't.
well, it
Well-
did for a time.
All it takes, I mean, you know.
If we were to euthanize the cats, while the neighborhood is fed up with an issue like this going on, if the city or whoever were to authorize the euthanasia of several
Yeah.
dozen cats, you would,
Hear a huge.
there would probably be a riot here.
Your neighbors would hear them running you out of town on.
Okay, so.
But what they do is they do fix them, and then they place them. So they don't euthanize them, they place them as working cats to barns and everything else. And they've done that in the dozens. So, I mean, they have the capacity to do that.
Okay, so is it not correct to try to do that again?
Well,
Or what's the downside if we do that again? I mean, if you can't eliminate them, euthanize them.
Yep.
What's the next best thing? All right, you're gonna fix them, okay, we did that, okay, well, if we have to keep doing it, then we have to keep doing it.
I think I think he or she is, costing the city and other entities money due to man-hours and everything trying to fix this problem. Last time criminal charges were filed, it seemed to, subside for quite a while. Am I wrong?
And what charges were filed?
It was a public nuisance charge that I filed.
Okay,
Yeah.
so can we do that again?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd have to go down there and observe it for myself and really take a close look at it and see if I have enough to do that, because I can't just go hand out charges just because I
So is
heard
it-
something.
so he had to pay a fine?
Yeah,
All right, so if you have a second offense, does the fine increase? No?
potentially.
So we're gonna catch his attention?
Do you remember, it was state charges that were filed, or was
Yeah.
it city-based charges?
I think it was city.
All right, so that seems like the next best thing, then, is
Sure.
to go issue him a citation,
Mhm.
and he's been how long ago was that?
A year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah, probably,
Was I the chief at the time? This was.
you were there, you
Was I?
were there, and it's still gone on even within the last year.
I walk out
There's
in the
no
alley
rumors of
and
it.
cats scatter.
All right, so you said it was effective somewhat when we did that, because I like that approach better than incurring all the additional costs
Sure.
for the vets to do that. So, can you continue to do that and increase it every, I don't know, 6 months, or? whatever it takes.
That's based upon the ordinance that the city has.
And I don't believe the ordinance has anything on fines.
Well,
That would be a
let's,
resolution.
going back to what are we trying to accomplish here? So the judge had provided a list of here's his concerns and comments and suggestions. Presumably, those were for specific, why am I not finding this?
I think what we saw was using state definitions for a vicious animal versus a nuisance animal.
It was
We have-
vicious and aggressive, I think.
Well, we have a vicious dog here, but we have a dangerous dog.
That's what it was.
It's the dangerous, and they wanted us to
Mhm.
clean up that.
Yeah.
Because dangerous doesn't carry anything, stick with
Correct.
with Montana code definitions.
Bite, growl, or bite, harass, chase, stuff like that.
Yeah, because this is a dangerous dog, which is probably nuisance, a dog that in the absence of provocation attacks, bites, chases, harasses,
Mhm.
or kills another animal.
Mhm.
I mean, to me, that goes under vicious,
Yes. I agree with that.
in the absence of provocation.
Yes.
And it made it worse by saying, or has been previously found by any court to be a dangerous dog. So that's why they really wanted that word dangerous out of there.
I see.
And I don't think we had a nuisance dog, we only had vicious and dangerous.
I've only ever utilized vicious. I don't think I've ever utilized dangerous.
It should be that.
Fun fact.
Maybe what we need to do, so this looks like the definitions have to be cleaned up. We need to have dangerous dog, perhaps changed to nuisance dog. And then I think I'd like to put a cat colony definition in there. I can use the state code. Owner restraint, just service dog. And maybe, also put in a definition of a puppy mill, just in case, so that at least we can,
So let my inner Doug speak. So you go through and we create definitions for all of these things. What have we solved? What problem no longer exists because we've made those changes?
Thank
well,
you.
then further down, it was that we will not allow any puppy mills in the city limits. And that as a cat colony thing, I think we need to basically say that the resident who's feeding a cat colony, you know, is breaking the law, in essence.
That's what
And
you did the first time, right?
Yep.
he used the state, he had to use the state.
I believe it was a local ordinance. I sent an email out with the charge to the mayor and the committee with a screenshot. This was a while back.
We need to address that person who is feeding them has to allow them to be trapped and neutered,
Well,
which is what he wouldn't do. He wouldn't allow them on his property.
Or that a court can order it so they don't
So
have
we
a
don't
say
want to
in
tie
it.
up the courts if we can,
I would propose, in the interest of getting this thing done, and again, this is just a suggestion, I'm a bystander in these things, is that in the interest of moving things forward, what we do is we take that list of questions, or however you tweak it or edit it, but this is, I think, a lot of the same thing I hear Doug saying is, A, can we do this? B, should we do this? What is the problem to be solved? I mean, let's do a worksheet. Let's identify, this is the problem we're gonna solve. Does the proposed action actually address the identified problem? What other mechanisms are available to solve this problem? Is there state codes? Is there the stuff we've done? Is there, what is the main argument for, against? Is it enforceable? What are the financial implications, potential unseen consequences? Does the action create any exposure or liability for the city? What is the potential impact if no action is taken? I mean, that's almost like a worksheet. And I'm with Doug when I sit down that says, we've talked about it, we've gone around and round in circles. Remind me again what we're here to solve. What is the problem to be solved? And if we can't, somebody should show up with here's what I think it is. And then as you go sit down and say, we're looking through it, we've defining the terms. Okay, is that any closer to getting this problem solved? Yes or no? We've added a new rule here. Is that any problem? You know, it's from a technician standpoint and a troubleshooting standpoint, the very, very first thing you do, my first step in troubleshooting is define what success looks like. And I don't think that's out of place here. What does success look like? If we had the appropriate pet policies in place, we, wouldn't have barking dogs, cats running wild, or we'd have a mechanism to deal with them that would hold up in court or whatever. And I hear us wandering around all talking about like we're on a Facebook group or bar or whatever, and we're not solving the problem yet.
So let me go back to this gentleman was found guilty of public nuisance or whatever it was a year and a half ago. So he was issued a citation, and that citation had to address what he did and don't do it again in the future, correct? So he's doing it again in the future. So we need to go back and hammer him, and this time harder. And then let's see if that works.
Well, and those things, realize some of those things are, if our ordinances don't change, then the parameters that the judge is working with are the same as they were last time. So it's not that it's a hit hard, I mean, it's out of our hands and control, and that's okay, because that wasn't even at a city court level. That was done at the district court, is my recollection, or was it done with Judge He Does It?
Yes.
Okay, I could have been, that's not my recollection, or it could have been simultaneous.
District court is where our felonies go. Or, PTOs or,
Okay.
stuff like that.
So do we have people that have complained? So we have reason to go out?
I have nothing in writing currently from the problem house. I mean, like today I knew I had dealt with it before, but today is the first I'm hearing of it like reoccurring again.
And you say it's common?
Well, we last time we had people who showed up both at city council meeting as well as at the day meetings complaining about the dogs and the number of dogs and the barking. So that's a concerning complaint.
Okay, but that's a separate issue right now.
Yeah.
Right now, we're trying to deal with the cat.
Okay.
So can we agree, or do we have to have a written complaint?
It helps, but I mean, like my observations in my recordings are what.
Okay, so is there any downside to you going out there
No.
and
No.
hitting him again?
No.
Any problems?
Well, once you take care of him
Mhm.
permanently, then VHA can go in and take care of the cat colony.
Yeah, the problem with this gentleman is he agrees to everything until it's time to act. VHA will offer their services, they'll bring the traps to his house. He says, yes, I will get them set up, this, that, and he never does it. So he knows exactly, for the most part, how far to push the envelope.
Right, so he's smart enough, he's beating the system, but he can't beat a citation.
Correct. Well, I mean, he can, anybody can beat a citation.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, we historically have learned that.
Yeah, right.
Through this ordinance, we have to give the court the teeth that they need. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line, is the ordinance is the teeth for the court.
Yep.
All right, but the ordinance is in place, that's the reason you did it the first
Yeah.
time.
If I take a stroll down that street today and I see it reoccurring, I'll do it today within the shift.
Okay,
Yeah, not a problem.
and let's see if that helps, then you said it helped before,
It did.
okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the way I look at it, we have a problem,
I mean,
that's
yeah,
gonna help the problem.
Red Lodge in there, well, to a fault, a lot of times Red Lodge will try to, and there are people that need help. There are people that need to have, a little hand holding and stuff like that. Red Lodge is and this is me speaking from a professional standpoint, not just the, not the police department, but other entities in the city, they try to go above and beyond to solve a problem without citation and help, and we're gonna carry this, and we're gonna help you do, and it sometimes it's blown up in their face.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'm gonna work on
This is a while back,
Wording.
mind you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work on the wording on this and see if some of this is really redundant too, it kind of goes on and on.
Well, as soon as I clear here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go bring up that original case. I'm gonna look at the charge, and I did send an email out about it to the committee, I'm certain of that. I'll identify whether it was a city or state charge, I'm pretty sure it was a city charge, and I'll go have a look and I'll do it again.
And if it's just under nuisance,
Mm-hmm.
this would give it a little more teeth, and that's the whole concept here.
Yeah.
Give it a little more teeth.
Mhm.
Okay, that's cool, that's good.
With, aggressive dogs, not to get off topic and stuff like that, aggressive dogs, barking dogs, dog at large, yada, yada, yada. If you read through the municipal code, there are certain sections in which the penalty does increase after each time.
There you
That's
go.
something to consider.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So on the dog barking, that's another issue we need to address, correct?
Well, that's actually in here that it's, 20 minutes out of an hour.
Yeah, and that, I don't think that's efficient, I don't think that's effective.
It's really hard to measure it, and then you can't prove it.
Right.
If you look at things like even the state to a fault, in terms of punishment, we've arrested people with 11 DUIs before. First one is obviously a hefty fine, second one's an even heftier fine, third one's an even heftier fine, and then fourth is a felony. And then after that, it's a felony, it's a felony, it's a felony. And what does the state do in terms of justice and holding people accountable for felonies and stuff like that? They don't go to jail.
Yeah.
So,
No capacity.
I mean, 11 DUIs, my guys, especially on night shift, they've seen it, 7, 8, 9 DUIs.
I absolutely hate that.
Yeah,
It's one thing I found in this state that,
there's a reason we're number one per capita with DUI fatality in the country.
number one,
Wow,
No
number
bueno.
one.
because we're too soft on, to the punishment.
Crime in general,
Yeah.
but we are way
drinking,
too soft on alcohol-related
DUI.
traffic offenses, yeah,
Statewide,
statewide,
or how about locally here?
Well,
same.
same.
And this isn't the fault of the judge, it's not his problem that our jails are overcrowded. Because our judge here, I can say with conviction, is,
See what you did there?
I'm sorry?
See what you did there?
Conviction.
Oh, yeah, there, I didn't even catch that. Our judge here, he has no dog in the fight as it relates to, he does a lot of times, most times, when he hands out sentencing, he hands it out with authority, and that's, in my opinion, what criminals need, because they're going to keep reoffending. Now, it's not his fault that jails, prisons, everything are overcrowded, and we've used probation and parole
Right.
as kind of a, well, we'll just do this instead of actually hold people accountable in jail. I mean, like, I could go on about this for hours, and you could probably hear me getting fired up, but I'll stop. So he is very fair on both the side of the defendant. I mean, like, if there's a mistake in the case or something like that, he recognizes it, and he's true to the justice system. But if somebody is dead to rights caught, and we have the evidence supporting our charge, they're going to pay for it.
Well, it's good to know.
Yeah, no,
That's good to see
absolutely. My team is thrilled with what he's done in the courtroom.
I've never seen him in action, so it's good to know.
I have, and yeah, it's a respectful court, and make sure you stay that way.
Yeah.
When you're in there, for
So
sure.
what's Montana not doing that other states are doing?
Filling jails.
They just fill jails?
They're,
I mean, these people that drink,
Mhm.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
And
I'm a firm believer in substance abuse counseling.
Exactly.
As it does help. Programs. I'm a big believer in drug courts. I'm a big believer in, programs to help somebody get sober, but when somebody has time and again reoffended and shown that they just do not care,
they don't want to stop
they
drinking.
don't want to stop, there's only one place for them. And we're keeping, a lot of times the state is keeping people out on the street and affecting the innocent motoring public. And this is just for DUIs and
Oh, yeah.
drugs and stuff,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
All
Madam
right.
Chair, with your permission, and we're at
We're
our
done.
close time, because we need to wrap it up. I have an email here, I'm gonna press send, it's to you, Doug, and, Jody. And it's kind of got, I captured cat colonies and dog barking, but I've kind of thrown in the worksheet of the problem, things at all. Can we, permission to just kind of send that out, and as we get together and talk, let's have people be able to sit down and talk about it and specifically articulate it, because what we've got is a list of 47 pages of here's what it says here, 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 and here. And I'm with Doug. Somewhere along the way, I lost, what is it we're trying to solve? What is the problem we've got?
All right, so we addressed the cat issue, he's gonna take action on that, that's a good thing. Dog barking, that's another separate problem that we haven't addressed yet, but it's not an easy solution.
Well, one thing that I want everybody to keep in mind is that no problem as it relates to law enforcement and us taking action is ever going to be a problem that can be solved. We have a drug problem. Is that problem ever going to be solved? Absolutely not. But we can certainly make a dent in it and try to make life easier for others
For
around.
protecting the rest of the public.
Correct, yeah. I mean, like, there's always gonna be barking dogs. There's always gonna be feral cat colonies. Hopefully, not to the extent that.
But we're addressing the issue.
Correct,
You've
yeah.
addressed it before.
If I have the evidence to support a charge today, he will be charged today.
Okay,
Easy.
good,
Yep.
good. Dog barking is gonna require additional conversations.
Yep.
How to measure the nuisance,
Yep,
yeah.
Our police canine is a nuisance dog as it relates to barking. He barks constantly. So, just so everybody knows.
Some dogs do,
Yeah.
some dogs do.
When he's training, he barks, but I mean, like, when he's just relaxed, he's fine. He knows when to stop.
I've heard him barking.
Oh, yeah. You can hear him like a block away when he's training in here.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
right.
Then we are adjourned.